Hey, ladies. I wanted to do this video really quickly to talk with you about being an entrepreneur versus an intrapreneur. And a lot of people haven't heard the term intrapreneur before, but I wanted to introduce it to you and also show you some examples of some successful entrepreneurs because you can be one too. So, first of all, we all know that an entrepreneur is somebody who starts a business. One of the big things with being an entrepreneur is you are responsible for everything in the business, funding the business, getting it up and running, working on the supply chain and the logistics, working on customer care, doing the accounting, doing the administrative stuff, just absolutely everything until you really start and grow. And some of you may say, you know what? I don't really want to do all of that. All I want to do is focus on the product and have somebody else work on the marketing and funding it and, the taxes and all of that stuff. Well, maybe you should look at being an entrepreneur. And what I want to do now is actually show you some successful entrepreneurs. So let us talk about successful entrepreneurs, just so you could get an idea of what entrepreneurs are. And then I'm going to talk to you about how you are able to apply this to your life and your journey. So, um, did you know that Flaming Hot Cheetos was actually developed by an employee of that business of Frito-Lay? So there was a guy named Richard Montanet. He grew up in a labor camp. He shared a one-bedroom apartment with 10 family members, dropped out of school at a young age while struggling with his English, but he ended up working on the Frito-Lay factory floor. And one day, Frito-Lay had this policy that they instituted that said, hey, we want everyone to think of this as their own business. So outside of Richard's core duties, he spent time learning the ins and outs of the factory, noting down the specific details of the whole process and operation. Hoping to expand his experience, Richard eventually asked the sales team if he could follow them around and learn their sales process. Again, Frito-Lay CEO Roger Enrico declared to his 300,000 employees that he wanted them to act like an owner, and Montaner, who was the guy that came up with the Flaming Hot Cheetos, didn't need to be told twice. Having noticed that Frito-Lay currently had no products on offer that catered to the traditional taste of the Latino community, Richard had an idea. At the factory, he decided to act like an owner, and he called up the CEO on the factory phone to pitch his idea. Enrico, impressed with the janitor's initiative, agreed to a meeting. A few months later, Richard's idea was brought to life as Flaming Hot Cheetos became a multi-billion-dollar product. Richard went on to become VP of Cultural Sales at Frito-Lay. And amassed himself a personal fortune of $2 million. So the interesting thing about this story is that he didn't have to put any of the money up in order to do R&D, in order to do any kind of development, in order to create supply chain or anything like that. He was able to actually plug into his employer system and then able to amass a personal fortune. You may say, well, $2 million out of a multi-billion dollar product, but again, he didn't have any of the risk associated with it. So I thought, I think for somebody who developed this first product, that's great. And then he can take that $2 million and do something else with it. I'll give you another example here. PlayStation, a guy named Ken Kutaragi. Ken Kutaragi began his career at Sony as an electrical engineer in the sound department at the age of 25. As Sony was not at the time involved in gaming, Ken began working on a side project in which he was a consultant with Nintendo, developing a new chip to improve the sound for Nintendo's next generation of game consoles. And this was in the early 90s, everybody. When Sony senior executives discovered Ken's project, they threatened to fire him from his position because he was working with, the I want to say the enemy, the competitors, right? Luckily, Sony's chief executive, Norio Okar, recognized Ken's creativity and entrepreneurial mindset, so he supported Ken and encouraged him to pursue his efforts. Nintendo decided against using Ken's CD-ROM and chose to move forward in a new direction. And then Kutaragi was disappointed. However, his spirit was not dampened as he returned his focus towards Sony. So sometimes you have to bounce these ideas back and forth, but he kept pursuing and ended up building the PlayStation, which accounted for 40% of Sony's corporate profits in the 90s by 1998. So again, he's probably getting a piece of the action without having to put in all of the R&D costs and things like that. One final one that I want to share with you is a guy named David Costello of Fast and Green. This is a recent example. This comes from Nestle. They have an ingenious entrepreneurs program. David was aware that a lot of times people were running out of their Nespresso pods before they had a chance to restock, leaving them without any coffee at home. David wanted to come up with a solution that would enable customers to receive their pods directly to their doors within 2 hours of ordering. The reason I want to show you this one is not everything has to be technology and a gadget or anything like that, super sophisticated. This was just like a regular problem that he noticed, and he was able to be an entrepreneur in that organization. In just 8 weeks, David's idea was brought to life, with Nestle's Fast and Green service now offering customers a greener way to get their deliveries within 2 hours of ordering. So, ladies, you can be an entrepreneur as well. You know, right now with the economy the way it is, you may not want to strike out all on your own, or you may not want to start that business from scratch, right? And have to put in all of the money and things like that. So, you can consider being an entrepreneur. Right now, with the job that I have, and again, I'll tell you all about that as we continue over the next couple of months. But I'm taking on a very entrepreneurial role within this organization. This gentleman wants to expand his business. He wants to build up a new division. He wants me to lead it. He's putting in all the money. I'm running it, and I get a share and a piece of the pie. I get an immense upside if and when it does very well. So you can do these things in a small business. It doesn't have to be a big business. The business that you approach for this doesn't have to be something or someplace that has a structured program. You could just have an idea. You could talk potentially with your employer or preferably the CEO about it. You can negotiate a budget for you to do R&D. R&D stands for research and development. And you can also negotiate royalties if and when the project does well. So I know some of you may be nervous with regards to what if the company steals my idea and cuts me out of it. You have to judge that yourself based on the type of company that you're working with. Are you working with honest people, or are you working with dishonest people? If you're working with dishonest people, I can definitely understand. If you are working with honest people, then give them a chance. Definitely get an attorney involved to at least look over your documentation. But you can make potentially millions of dollars a year on royalties with the right product or service or increase. At the very least, let's say you made an additional 20, 30, $40,000 a year. That could be the difference between you having money to invest in other things or not. So that's it. Just want to share this with you, and I'll see you in the next video.